including particularly in the classroom, and represented our university with class and integrity. While winning 2 outright Big Ten titles in 5 years and being named the Big Ten Coach of the Year just last year, Tom worked tirelessly to develop great young men and successful teams. However, ultimately, we seek more consistent, high levels of success, and we will not shy away from our expectations. Tom is a good man and a good coach, and we owe him a great deal of gratitude for his many positive contributions to Indiana basketball, and we all wish him well. The national search for our new coach begins immediately. The Board of Trustees and the President have expressly delegated to me the responsibility and authority for this search and hire. While I will not be establishing a formal search committee or advisory committees, I will consult with basketball experts from around the country and throughout the state of Indiana, including many former Indiana University basketball players, state coaches, and so forth. The expectations for Indiana University basketball are to perennially contend and win multiple Big Ten championships, regularly go deep into the NCAA tournament, and win our next national championship and more after that. We will identify and recruit a coach who will help us meet these expectations. With that, I'd be happy to take all of your questions.
I guess Fred,
as you look at what you want, what are the key things you want in the next coach? What are, maybe 3, 4 things that the next guy really has to do and has to do well?
Well, first, Jeff, I think it starts with the givens. So our number one priority is to play by the rules. We don't want anybody who's been associated with significant NCAA infractions. We want somebody who cares about the wellness of the kids in mind, body, and spirit. Therefore, we don't want anyone who has shown a proclivity to be, abusive or had any of those situations. Academics are important, hopefully everywhere, but here, particularly in Indiana, we expect the kids to go to class and graduate, and so no one with significant academic issues. And then someone that fits the culture, if you will, can buy into our values and priorities. But those are sort of the givens. That's sort of the ante to get in the game. We want somebody who can win Big Ten and national championships. We want somebody who's a proven winner, somebody who's a proven recruiter, who has the ability and the desire to recruit in the Midwest and especially in Indiana. Someone who's a good tactician in the games, a developer of talent. And this is a elusive phrase, I suppose, but someone who's a leader of men, someone who the kids trust, has their best interest at heart, and that the kids understand they can make them better. So those are the things I'm looking for in the next coach in Indiana.
Fred, Indiana hasn't won a national title in 30 years. And you talk about winning a national championship and then the next one, multiple Big Ten championships. What makes you think this program can erase the last 3 decades and become a perennial national title contender?
Well, I think this is one of the best jobs in college basketball. And I think through a variety of situations, we haven't been there since 1987. I think sometimes those of us who are so close to it in Indiana don't step back and recognize what an extraordinary job this is. So start out with the tradition and values of the team. Those are obvious. We see the 5 banners all the time. I think that puts us in the top 5 nationally, but in most all the other categories, we're in the top 5 or 10. Tourney appearances, tourney wins, Sweet 16 appearances, college players of the year, Big Ten players of the year, Big Ten, all Big Ten teams. We are still in the top 5 or 10 in all those categories. The rabid fan base that has more people come to a practice at Hoosier Hysteria than most teams average in a season. the recruiting base here in Indiana. We're only the 17th most popular state in the country, but we've produced the 4th most NBA players in the country. Plus the resources we're willing to put in, we have dramatically increased the resources that we've committed to men's basketball over the last 9 years, to where I think we have one of the most robust budgets in the country. It's first class all the way. Cook Hall, the renovated Simon Scott Assembly Hall, the 7,800 student section, which is the largest in the country, with 11,000 kids trying to buy those 7,800 tickets. A fantastic university with academics that hold up to almost really anyone else. So, and the commitment from the department to continue to make those resources available. So I think it's a fantastic job. I expect there to be great interest in it, and look forward to starting that process very soon.
So, and those are all great points, but at what point do 3 decades of results not match that kind of optimism you just showed? At a certain point, your job is what you've done. You are what your record says you are. At what point do you have to maybe accept the reality that Indiana isn't an elite job?
Yeah, I don't accept that. I think somebody suggested that if I fired Tom Crean, I would come out in a members only jacket because it would be 1970 or 1980. And even though that's my year, I didn't have a members only jacket, so I wasn't able to wear that. But I understand that. In some ways, I think that's the beauty of the opportunity, that the next coach can put his mark on a program that, as you point out, hasn't had the success that we expect, generally in that time frame. But we have all the resources to get there, and I think looking forward could be a powerhouse to be reckoned with the right leadership, because of all those attributes we have, including resources that everybody knows about. The banners, everybody knows about the candy striped pants, everybody knows about the names are on the front of the jersey, not on the back. But I think I look forward to sitting across the table from coaches and saying, here's what your assistant coach pool budget is. Here's how we travel. Here's our commitment to recruiting and so forth. And that's why I'm confident that we'll get the attention of some first-class folks.
So do you think it's fair to say, Fred, that this opening right now in the search you're about to lead is a litmus test for how good this job is? I mean, ultimately, the caliber of candidate you attract is going to speak to that.
Well, I'm confident that we'll get the coach we want to meet our expectations. I'm not sure Bobby Knight won the press conference when he was 31 years old, coming from Army. So we're not going. Our goal is not going to be to win the press conference. Our goal is going to be to get the person we think can meet the very clear expectations that we've set out, building on the resources and natural attributes that we have here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred, how much did this season play a factor in your decision, or is it more cumulative over the last several years?
It was really the latter, Dave. I'm always somewhat amused or bemused, I suppose, when people say, well, this guy's coaching for his job in this tournament or in this game or in this run, because that just seems inherently silly to me. And yeah, this was a disappointing year, but the year before was a really strong year. So this year, in my view, wasn't a disproportionate part of my evaluation, but a part of the whole time that Tom's been here.
Brett, I know you said that this was, an accumulative decision and it didn't have to do with this season, but could you feel maybe the frustration from fans this season, specifically because of how it ended and where it went?
Well, yes, Trish. I read every signed email and letter that I'm sent. I talk to fans a lot. Feel like I'm fairly accessible to that. So I certainly understand the frustration with this year. But I'd also suggest to you that the frustration the opposition to Tom, the frustration may have been universal. In my view, the opposition to Tom was not. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap when you are listening to talk radio and reading message boards, and the people that are against, understandably, tend to be louder, to have a sense of there was kind of universal opposition to Tom. I just don't think that's true. It's not true in my experience with people that I talk to, with some of the letters that I get. When I was in Atlanta, I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, "Hey, Tom's doing a good job. Stay with Tom." And these are people that were traveling distances and were excited to be there. I think really true, Hoosier fans. So this was a decision that I made not because I thought it was popular, because popular tends to change, but it was the decision I thought I needed to make because it was right, because right, tends not to change.
Fred, in your next coach, do you weigh the factor of whether they have IU ties or not in the past? And at this point, do you have a list of candidates?
We're beginning that process, and I'm sure, I've got some ideas of people, but it's an open search. I don't have someone in the bag. I haven't reached out to anybody that in 2 days we're going to have somebody. I think this is probably going to be a bit of a process. But sure, I've got an idea of the kind of people and some specific people I'd want to go after. I don't really have a litmus test at all. I ran off some of the attributes that I'd like to have in a coach. To me, IU ties is a double check plus. Being a former IU person in one way or another is a double check plus. Being from the state of Indiana is a double check plus. Collegiate head coach experience is certainly a plus. But there's other ways to evidence your ability to take on a job like this. So IU Indiana ties, absolute plus, but no litmus test for me. I wouldn't foreclose. Sometimes a candidate comes in over the transom, and it's an open search at this point.
So it's not a be-all, end-all?
Correct.
They don't have to be an IU guy?
Correct.
I guess I could follow up on that. I mean, you're not even necessarily looking for sort of like, I guess, a long CV of college head coaching experience?
Well,
I mean,
we have our general expectations of what we're looking for that I described: proven ability to win, proven ability to recruit, especially around here, as they say, proven ability to connect with the kids. All the givens that I talked about in terms of academics and integrity and compliance and all that. And I know it's tempting to ask a lot of details about what about this and what about that. And I don't want to pin myself down to anything in particular, because in my view it's an open search. Those things are a plus. Indiana is a plus. That's probably not surprising coming from me. I've got 2 IU degrees, and I think there's some real value in being from this place. But I'm not going to foreclose somebody because they don't have Indiana ties, and I'm not going to foreclose somebody because they haven't been a head coach in college, but I'm going to acknowledge that I think that's a plus.
Fred, you talked about a national search. Would you look to somebody who's been in the NBA, that has Indiana ties, that might be interested? Or I know, do you interview everybody that contacts you? Because I know back in, before you came along and Greenspan was the athletic director, there were certain people that actually went to the school that was very interested in the coaching job and never got interviewed. How are you going to approach that?
Right. Well, George, first of all, I'm not going to foreclose anybody, whether in the NBA or not in the NBA. I would say that's a plus, probably a relevant experience. My guess is that the interest in this job will be such that I won't interview everybody, but I'll interview everybody that is connected to Indiana University. Any alumnus of Indiana University that wants to apply this job, I will personally talk to them. Because number one, I believe in that and believe in their potential to be successful here. And I'm also a big believer in Hoosiers for life. And if anyone from Indiana wants to talk to me about this job, I will talk to them.
What was your timeline that kind of led up to this decision?
Yeah, I really tried to be disciplined to wait until the end of the year, which I viewed as the total end of the year, the end of the postseason. The game ended late Tuesday night. I really made this decision last night and communicated it to Tom this morning and wanted to get that out promptly.
I know you said there was frustration from the fan base, but what kind of pulse did you get from the players on where they stood with Coach?
Well, I think the players are very supportive of Coach Crean. He connects with the guys, and I really think they want to play hard for him. So, unfortunately, because it's spring break week, I have not been able to interact directly with the players, which is unfortunate. We did reach out to them, electronically through texts before, which isn't the way you want to do things, but it's spring break week. We have scheduled a meeting with the players for Sunday night, so we'll connect with them in a direct way as quickly as we can.
Is there concern about retention, about players possibly leaving?
Well, I think there always is, just because of the nature of these transitions generally, not because I'm particularly concerned about any one player. My request to them will be to, be loyal to Tom, hurt and grieve. Tom cared about these kids, and I think they knew that. But I'm gonna ask them to give the new person a chance and talk to them, and then if they want to make other decisions, we'll work with them. But hopefully they'll at least give the new person an opportunity.
Fred, will you reach out to the recruits that they've already recruited for next year too?
Yeah, we already have done that.
Is there a time frame where you would like to have this all wrapped up? Is there a time that you like to have this?
Yeah, AC, I think, as quickly as we can, but we're going to give it the time it needs. So I guess I'll go back to that old saw that I'd rather have it right than fast. And we'll move with all deliberate speed. We're already working on that. As of this morning anyway. And we'll move out. But, the kind of people we are interested in are the kind of people who are successful in playing basketball still. Whether it's in the league or whether it's in one of the postseason tournaments, and we will respect what I anticipate being their sole focus on their teams, and so it might be a while.
How big is the potential candidate's previous NCAA tournament success to you? I mean, how big of a factor is that?
I think we look at everything. I've started to ask to have put together those kinds of objective metrics. So we'll look at all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to create a litmus test of so many or so rank or this experience or that, because I think I want to stay flexible to look at all that stuff, but also hear advice from other folks and how we connect with those individual people.
How much can you speak to, I guess, severance buyout with Tom's contract? I think everybody kind of knows where the number was, what's been agreed, or is that something you can speak to publicly?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I want to make really clear, Tom is going to get all the benefits under the contract that he's entitled to for being fired without cause. There's nothing more to this than my belief in the future of the program based upon what I think ultimately was inconsistent athletic performance, if you will. There's no other issues, and he will. I will happily pay them all that he's entitled to under the contract. The central feature of that, which his buyout has seemed to be a subject of some interest over the years, and I would suggest to you probably overblown interest, but you can make your own judgments about that. As most of you know, he's entitled to $4 million under the contract. That's not a lump sum payment. That is a payment in the normal course of, it's Wednesday, it's check day, it's next Wednesday, it's check day. So, you know, I didn't go to Purdue, but that's about $1.3 million a year, if my math is close, that he would be paid out over time. And that's a lot of money. I don't want to minimize that, but on a $100 million budget, that's money we can commit to that. Now, the big thing that often gets left out is the contract calls for mitigation set-off, which means if he gets a comparable job in professional basketball, college basketball, or as a media personality, then that money gets set off dollar for dollar with what we would owe him. So at $1.3 million a year, you know, if he gets another coaching job, we'll probably not owe him anything. So the buyout was really a non-issue. I know there was some talk of, you know, especially in 2014, about whether the buyout was keeping his job. I'm just telling you it was not, because even then, I think the buyout would have been over a longer period of time, and we would end up not paying much of that anyway. He was here because I wanted to be here, and now he's not here for the converse reason, and not because the buyout is one place or another. So the primary potential cost of the transition is the $4 million, which we may or may not owe Tom. And then there's about $700,000 of separation costs for other staff that normally would be expected to leave as well. But most of that's also subject to the mitigation and set-off that I described. So much of that might go away as well. In terms of the staff, I should mention that our hope, maybe much like the players, is that well, maybe a little different players, but the new coach would look at them and talk to them and make a decision about whether they would stay or not. But as of this point, I would expect those folks to stay.
When the players do return, has anyone been appointed to oversee team activities, team workouts, and all of that?
Yeah, we've put together like a transition group. Longtime trainer Tim Garl and Derek Elston, as you know, former player and current staff member. We'll work with Maddie White and Scott Dolson to oversee the team activities.
Brett, did you come to the decision last night or this morning, and did you have any conversations with Tom? Did he try and pitch for another season?
Yeah. Tom and I had a couple, I mean, we talk almost every day. Sometimes by text, but we would talk almost every day. But we had two specific conversations about the future and what I saw as my options going forward, and they were very, very positive. He was very relaxed and non-defensive, and I really appreciated those conversations a great deal. But last night, after I had a chance to really kind of absorb and consider everything, and feeling that the decision needed to be made, I felt like it would be bad for everybody to sort of leave him twisting, even though you always maybe want a few more days. It's kind of like they tell me, Lauren Michaels says that on Saturday Night Live they don't go on because they're ready, they go on because it's 11:30 on Saturday night. So this decision, I felt like I was ready. I don't mean to be dismissive of that, but I thought it needed to be made, and that's why I made it last night, and then communicated that to Tom this morning, and then here we are. It might be worth mentioning too, because I talked about what I viewed to be the options that I had, and I talked about it to Tom in this context. Obviously, 3 years left in this contract. It seemed to me that at this point in time, I either needed to extend his contract and give him the vote of confidence he needed with actions, not words, with an extension. Be prepared to allow him to go forward without an extension, or make a change. And I concluded that the extension wasn't something that I was prepared to do, because even though we have had success, I just think both between and within seasons, it's just been too inconsistent for our expectations. and was very tempting to go with the second option of allowing him to go forward without the extension, and I think to his great credit, he was willing to do that, which I think would have been a very hard thing for him to do. But I got to tell you, he loves Indiana, and he loves living here, and he loves his kids going to school here, and I think he felt like he could win, and he was willing to bet on himself, and I admire that, and I appreciate that. In the final analysis, I wasn't comfortable going forward with that because given that he would only have 3 years left, and given that I would very publicly not given him an extension, I think he would have been on the hot seat from day one. And I think every ebb and flow of the season, which happens to every program, would have been blown out of proportion. And everybody would say, well, is this it? Is he going to get fired early? Is he going to make it till the end of the year? Which I think would have been very, very hard on him, but that's his business. But what's my business is how hard that would be on the program. And I thought that would be too hard on the program to be a justifiable option. So that was my analysis. That's why I ended up at door number 3 and made that decision last night.
Fred?
Yeah, George?
I've watched your demeanor at the Georgia Tech game, and you looked very anguished during the game, and obviously the score wasn't very good, but how tough has this been on you to do this as the athletic director of Indiana?
Well, first, I want to thank the HT staff photographer for catching me at a particularly anguished moment and sharing it with the world. First of all, I'm a fan first, okay? I mean, I was born in Indianapolis. I've been a Hoosier fan my whole life. I made little crafts when I was in like kindergarten. Skipped school to welcome the '76 team back. Got a championship in '81 when I was a senior. And so, I'm the athletic director, and I have to be a dispassionate steward. But I'm also a fan, and we would get close and not get over the hump. So part of that was being a fan, watching the game. This is it's hard for me, but that's part of my job, and it's not anywhere near as hard on me as it is on Tom and Joni and Ainsley and Riley and Megan. So and the other families affected. That's who I feel for.
Fred, do you see some mistakes made in the last couple of basketball searches that this school has done, and maybe adjust your process to that?
Well, I'm not going to second guess or pick on decisions that were made previously, but I've studied those and talked to some of the people involved, and feel like we're setting up a structure that I think will be effective.
From a pure logistical standpoint, do you think it's tenable to hire a sitting NBA coach right now, a head coach?
Ultimately, if someone wants to be the head coach at Indiana University, I think that's a detail.
Fred, what point in the season did this course of action first pop into your mind? At what point did you think this might be a decision you had to make?
Well, look, going into a year where he was going to have 3 years left at the end, sort of knew that there was going to be probably a big decision, whether it's an extension or something else. So it wasn't in reaction to like a bad streak or anything else. But I know, and I think Tom knew that this was going to be a big year.
Was there any serious consideration last year when they won the Big Ten title to give any extension at that point?
We decided not to do that.
Was it discussed at all, or among?
It wasn't a big discussion.
Have you heard yet? Are you getting calls or things from people that are interested in the job? Yes?
Yes.
With 2 Big Ten titles in 5 years being deemed not good enough, do you have supreme confidence you can find someone who can eclipse that and do that?
Well, if I was a judge, I would challenge your premise or object for a leading question. But I do challenge the premise. I mean, I don't think it's fair to hone in on 2 Big Ten championships in 5 years, Coach of the Year last year, and all that. Because this wasn't a 1-year decision or a 4-year decision. It was really a 9-year decision. In terms of past being prologue, because to me it's always been about the future with Indiana basketball. We can look at what happened before and the really Herculean effort Tom did in those first 3 years, which may have been his best coaching effort ever. I would suggest to you that the first 3 years of him holding it together with chewing gum and spit and duct tape was a better coaching effort than both of his Big Ten titles. But in any event, he did also have the Big Ten titles, which were outstanding. But what I had to do was look forward, and I felt, based upon really the inconsistency that I, given where we were with 3 years, that it wasn't a time when I wanted to make an extension. But Tom made very significant contributions to us, and it's clearly a much better job now than it was when he came. Jeff?
I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but are there any coaches who have reached out who are in a position where you could say who they are?
No.
think I know the answer, but
yeah, I appreciate the question. No, and as you might imagine, I'm not going to comment on any person's particular interest or my reaction to that. But no, I understand the question, but no.
Salary range obviously is a really big topic in coaching searches that have gone on, some of which have been concluded, some of which are ongoing. Can you ballpark it for me? What would be the ceiling for Indiana?
Resources won't prevent us from getting who we want.
Would you imagine, could you envision also, I guess, an injection beyond the head coach's salary, but into assistant coaching, budget pools, those kinds of things as well?
Yes.
Fred, back to how tough it was on you. How crazy is it that you got to replace the football coach and the basketball coach in the same season?
Yeah, again, that's my job. That's the tough part of it. Try to make the decisions that I think need to be made, for the right reasons. Again, reasonable people can disagree about those things, but that's not really what I hoped this year was going to be about. Any other questions?
Do you have a specific timetable in mind to ballpark it? I know you said you don't want to lock yourself into something, but do you have an idea we would like to have this done by fill in the blank time?
I really don't, Jeff, because I just think that's artificial,
Okay.
Different people are going to have different realities to deal